Hello SGD, Sacred Geometry Decoded, and this will be part 10 in the series on the pentagram. And now we'll be looking at astronomy, especially through connections to always weights and measures. Now, very important symbol in all forms, but astronomy, and especially Sun, Earth and Moon, so space. Now, if you track the orbits of Earth and Venus, so when Venus is at its closest to Earth, every second point of a pentagram, but if you follow it around and keep going, you get this spiral. So as Venus and Earth will be connected by this pentagram. There is a slight deviation in there, but you find that this is actually even encoded in places such as the street plan of Washington and others where the margin of error is actually very, very important theme. But Sun, Earth and Moon, and we'll be focusing on that for the moment and using these, again, these pentagram numbers, but also as we previous episodes I pointed out 33, 153, 273, how from the vesica seed of life we get this connection off there. Now 153, the square root of 153 is 12.369. There are 12.369 average. Now that's because elliptical nature of things, there's always these little deviations, but there are the square root of 153 is essentially the number of full moons per year, and full moons are defined by what's called the Synodic lunar month, and that's 29.53 days. So we have a 30-day month, but actually the full moon is every 29.53 days on average, again because of elliptical nature of orbits. Now the Synodic lunar month, one orbit of the moon around the Earth in relation to the Sun. That's the reference point. That's 29.53 days. This is a month they also use to calculate solar eclipses, but because the moon also wobbles up and down in the orbit, that's why we don't have a solar eclipse every 29.53 days. But it's also interesting to note that this is a reference to time. Now, a time is a measure, but also a reference to length as a measure, because you've the relationship between Sun, Earth and Moon, but if you multiply the diameter of the Earth times 29.53, you get the distance from the Earth to the Moon. Sun, Earth, Moon, and these just coordinations that are going on. So that's the Synodic lunar month. Now there is another type of month, and we can look at, for instance, 273. Okay, so Synodic month is one orbit of the Moon around the Earth in relation to the Sun. Then there's a Sidereal month, which is one orbit of the Moon around the Earth in relation to a fixed star. Now that happens every 27.32 days on average. Sidereal 27.3273 and 29.53 days for the Synodic. Sun, Earth and Moon is Synodic. Earth, Moon and stars is Sidereal. Now it just so happens that there are 13.369 sidereal lunar months per year, give or take, very slight fraction, which is the number of the square root of 153 plus 1. So this plus 1 minus thing, which is so important, makes phi such a lovely number. But we saw phi earlier. A lot more to come on this, because this will all join in, and it will even join in with the number 33. So firstly, Sun, Earth, Moon, and the Synodic month, and these connections that go with there. Now, measures of length, and how are these also incorporated? Now, mentioned temperature early, so 273 Celsius and Kelvin relationship, but similar things happening between Fahrenheit, 32 degrees Fahrenheit, 0 Celsius is where water freezes. Water boils at sea level at 100 degrees C, and that's 33 on the Newton scale, this 32 over 33 thing. Earlier episode I went through these connections, but a little bit more. But for instance, old borderland mapping, navigation, measurement as well, they used 32 points around the 33rd central point. You find the same thing in cathedrals everywhere, 32 rays around the 33rd core point. It's just a Pyramid of Peace Reconciliation in Astana by Lord Norman Foster, this famous architect. Wherever he touches, he puts his esoteric themes in the measurements and the proportions, and always comes out. But again, the top level where it is illuminated by sunlight, amongst many other aspects, but there are 32. So this is the center of diplomacy for the Eurasian region. But anyway, 32 around the 33rd core. UN flag has the same thing, 32 sectors around the 33rd central point. US dollar bill, eagle, 32 feathers on one side, 33 on the others. Scottish Rite Masons have 33 levels, but 32 by initiation, the 33rd by invitation only. Again, the 33rd being the core. Now we go to imperial measures. The modern foot, as we described, is actually much older. We'll have a look at that in a moment. But this imperial measure system, so imperial foot, or 0.3084 meters, the 12 inches that you should be familiar with. But how does that connect to this old scale, the long or the Persian foot? There's evidence for the long foot, the same one, all over ancient sites, especially in Western Europe. It just always beautiful harmony of numbers. But that's 1.056 feet conversion. Now, 1056 equals 33 times 32, 33 and 32. Now, 1056 divided by 2 equals 528, as there are 5,280 feet per mile. Now, it's also interesting to note that weights and measures, how cunningly these are encoded. But for instance, 33 pounds is 528 ounces. 32 rods is 528 feet, and 1 mile is 5,280 feet. But why 32 on the rods? Well, one rod is 33 divided by 2 feet. One rod is 16.5 feet. 32, 33, 32, 33 in this 528, which brings us back to 30, well, the long scale. But there are, so the long foot and the imperial, or the English foot. Now let's look at more connections. And so you have your traditional tracing board for Masons, little pentagram there. And notice that so there are 3 columns: the Doric, the Ionic, and the Corinthian. And that Ionic column is partially obscured, but you can see the top of it with the swirls directly below the pentagram. So you have your Doric foot is a standard, Corinthian is with the acanthus-based capital. And then in the center we have the Ionic foot with these swirls. Now, what's also interesting is that Mark Wilson Jones uncovered Salamis stone, which places, well, what do we have? So we have, there's like a foot here, there's a ruler here, and a ruler to the bottom of the stone. This stone, the complete one, is at a ratio of 2 to 3, or the vesica, but the so-called modern English foot is actually seen in ancient Greece, and it's like, for instance, the Parthenon columns are 48 feet high and form a harmony point between the Doric, as in the Doric column, Doric and Ionic, or Dorian and Ionian, are also music scales, but we see this ruler is 1 Doric foot, and from the Doric foot to the bottom of the stone equals 1 Ionic foot, and that's what will be. So also on the board, measure, the ruler, this is what these guys do. It's all measure and geometry symbol tools, masonry tools. So the long foot, the traditional foot that we're used to, and the Ionic foot. And how do they blend together? Sun, Earth and Moon. Well, firstly, just 720 leagues is the diameter of the Moon, above 99.9. These are all above 99.94, not even up to 9%. But 1 league is 3 miles. So now 720 multiplied by 3, so the diameter of a moon, 2,160 miles. Now what's also nice is that in leagues, 288,000 leagues, the diameter of the sun at 864,000 miles. Measuring the sun's very difficult, so but it's still again above 99.94%. And there's always a definition that goes in there. So we see the imperial units, how they connect. Now, what's also interesting is that by definition, at least, the equatorial circumference of the Earth is 21,600 nautical miles, 216. Originally, Eratosthenes measured the polar circumference of the Earth, which is slightly less because of a flattening at the tops. He measured it at 250,000, but Pliny and other writers said 252,000 stadia. 252. 216 equatorial circumference, 252 polar circumference. Now, the Ionic and the Persian foot, how do they blend? Well, that's nice because 33 on the Ionic scale, one chain is 66 feet or 4 rods, and on the long scale, the long foot, 33. Again, the defining nice connections there between the Earth, but it goes on. So on long yards, 36 or 360, but let's just do the 36. The Moon, 72 on the long cubits. It's always on long and Ionic. And Ionic, long and Ionic. We get the Moon, 72, and the Sun, long and Ionic scale, 108 degrees, long feet. We get the diameter of the Moon. 144 on the long scale, we get the Moon, and we get the Sun. Sun, Earth, Moon. Okay, 180 or 8, so Ionic chains. And one chain is 66 feet or 33 times 2 or 4 rods. And on the Ionic and on the long fathom, we get the Moon at 18. Now at, we already did 216, 252, now 288. League already defines the Sun. 1 league is 3 miles. And on the Ionic and the long scale, we also get the Sun. And at 324, we also get the Moon. So these systems of measurement from the pentagram numbers give us Sun, Earth, and Moon across these ancient scales, which apparently have no connection to one another, but yet they're just so harmonized to give us all these connections which come back to our modern systems of weights and measures, including metric, but I'm focusing on imperial because metric, the meter and the kilogram, all just come in together, and so this was all by coincidence. The Hermeticists and alchemists had nothing to do with it. They were off doing some other stuff. They weren't into them trying to work out the relationship of the universe, because this was a side thing for them. They were, this is, don't look at that. Take some LSD and then you'll get enlightenment. Well, yeah. Anyway, this all blends in now. Back to the square root of 153, Sun, Earth, and Moon, which is a reference to both time, 29.53 days, as well as a ratio of distance between these. Now, more to come in the next episodes, but maybe it's a bit hard to make out. But there are different bands on the Sun that rotate at different speeds. So it's not a solid body. So different parts of the Sun are rotating at different speeds. And well, it just so happens that it 75 degrees north or south is 33 days it takes for that part of the Sun to do one rotation. And so basically at 72 degrees, the Sun rotates at 33 days. Now you're also going to incorporate 27.3. I'm going to come more into this because sunspots tend to occur at about 27.3 degrees north or south of the equator, and they're on a place where it's a 27.3 day rotation. But we'll come to this more just as an intro. The pentagram, through systems of weights and measurement, and it's not dry. This is trying to understand the universe, the cosmos. This is as esoteric as they come, but this is somehow defined as exoteric. It's not incorporated, but no, this is the stuff. This is hardcore. This is what they were doing. Now, why these numbers are so important? Because they incorporate the cosmos, the universe, and for proportions. Earlier episodes went through time, temperature, systems of measurement, the golden ratio, even like the precession is also incorporated in here. This is what could be more mystic? What could be more mystic than this? Just because it's got math and geometry somehow, it doesn't qualify as alchemical, or anyway. with that, hope you enjoyed. Still more to come on this particular topic, the pentagram. It's a decoder.